Every once in a while, a game comes along that captivates the board game audience. In 2012, that was Antoine Balza's Tokaido, a game that found players traveling across the Japanese countryside to collect tokens along a linear path, in an effort to collect victory points through a wide range of different actions. And now, in 2019, we see the re-implementation of that same style of gameplay from designer Antoine Balza in Funforge's brand new game coming up called Namiji. In Namiji, players will be representing Japanese fishers, using their boats to travel south from the islands in order to collect resources that will gain them victory points. Similar to Tokaido, the player who is currently last on the track will take their turn by advancing forward as far as they wish to take that desired action. Each action that you take will allow you to gain some type of resource, with the idea that you can never come backwards. Now, the first thing that you're going to notice about Namiji is that the starting player has a decision to make right at the start of the game. Do they take a clockwise path around the island or a counterclockwise path? The choice is up to them, but each subsequent player must follow them along that path until the end game is triggered. Now, along the path are 8 different locations that players can stop at, and I'll explain each of them in turn. But the first thing you need to know is that each player will start with their own boat board. This boat is going to have a couple different things you need to pay attention to. One are the paper boats that are going to be placed off to the side. These will need to be discarded through very specific actions in the game in order to not earn negative points. Each player will start with 4 of these on one of each of the 4 different locations on that player board. Also, the player will have a giant net where they will contain all the different fish that they are able to catch during the game, and I'll explain this in a moment as well. And the final place is along the bottom of the board, and this will house all the different crustaceans that they find, whether they be shrimp or crabs. To start the game, each of the players participating will place their boat across the dock. Then a number of different locations on the board will have cards and or tokens. These are the panoramas, which come in the dolphins, octopus, and whale cards. We'll get to those in a moment as well. Each of these are the single line tokens. These are going to represent the different fish that you can catch in Namiji. Over here are the sacred cards. These sacred cards will give you end of the game bonuses when you collect them. Over here are the docks. Now, docks will be drafted at 3 times through the game. Each of these will give you some player abilities that you need to pay attention to and may change the way that you play. Now, to play the game, the player who is furthest back, being the start player, is going to choose which of the 2 directions they wish to move. When they move, they get to decide how far along the different areas they wish to move. You're going to move 1 or 2 spaces in order to take the action of that particular space. Now, the spaces are typically only 1 spot. However, there are some spots that have 2 locations on them, and these will only be used in the 4 and 5 player variant. If you're playing just a 2 to 3 player game, you're only going to use a single spot for each one of these different actions. The actions are as such. There are 3 locations on the game board that will allow you to collect panorama cards, whether they be dolphins, octopus, or whales. And when you do so, you're simply going to grab the first available card and gain the number of points on that side. These cards will be built up on your collection or on your side of the table according to that panorama. Now, the first player to collect all the pieces of a panorama will get an additional 3 points, and this is a race portion of the game. Each of these different panoramas are going to have a different number of cards associated with it. The dolphins have 3 cards, the octopus has 4 cards, and the whale has 5 cards. Next is the crustacean trap. This is a push your luck element in the game in which the player will take the bag and draw from it 1 token at a time. What they're trying to do is capture shrimp. Each one of these shrimp is going to give them 1 victory point when it is captured, and it's simply going to be placed on their player board. However, when they capture a crab, they have a choice to make. Do they wish to keep going or do they wish to stop? Crabs are also worth 1 victory point. However, if you draw 2 crabs, all the crustaceans and all the crabs you drew that turn are discarded back into the bag, and you will get no points for it during this round. The next spot, labeled in dark blue, is the line fishing. This is where the player is allowed to draw 1 of these tiles, flip it over, and then place it on their board. The very first one that you place in the game must be placed in the top left corner of the board. Each subsequent tile that you draw in the game is orthogonal to a previously placed tile. Now, the object here is set collection, whether they be all the same color in a row or column or all the same type of fish. In this instance, I have 4 blue, which will score me 5 points, and here I have 3 of the same type of fish, which will score me 3 points. These you're going to be trying to build through the course of the game. Outside of line fishing, which will draw you 1 tile per location, you can also do net fishing, which is located right here. This will allow you to draw the top tile, which is a 2x1 of a particular type of fish, and lay this orthogonal to previously placed tiles as well. This way you can build out more patterns quicker. The pink locations are labeled the Sacred Rock action, and this will allow you to draw 2 cards from the Sacred Rock deck and then pick one of these particular cards. Each of these cards will give you some end of the game points depending upon the parameters that you've met during that game. Typically, some type of fish that you've captured on your boat or other type of things that you've collected during the course of the game. And the final main location here is the whirlpool. This will allow you to take your highest paper boat and offer it to the whirlpool, basically appeasing the deities for its safe travels along the ocean. Any of these paper boats that you have left on your player board at the end of the game will give you negative points. As players progress along the path, they will eventually reach the dock, which has a location for each of the players participating. Players must stop at the dock and wait for all the other players behind them to catch up. When that happens, players will then draw an X number of dock cards equal to the number of players plus 1. And then, in turn order, according to whoever is closest to the inside of the track, is going to draft one of those cards. Again, these dock cards have a wide range of abilities that will change the way that you play or possibly give you points for drafting those particular cards. Once each player is done drafting one of those dock cards, then starting with a player who is furthest out or the furthest behind, will continue doing actions until everyone arrives back. Now, the first player to make it all the way around the board will get the highest available in-game token, being 7, and then 5, and then 3, and then 2, depending upon all the other players that fall in line at the end. Final points will be determined according to all the different Sacred Rock cards that players have and have achieved through the course of the game. The player with the most points is going to win. So that is Namiji from Funforge and Antoine Bauza. If you have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter. Make sure you guys check out the Kickstarter to see all the final components, and we'll see you guys next time.